if you could be involved with a guy that he makes $1 million a year, and you can be with him, or you can make $100,000 a year and be on your own, I don't know.
Well, there's just so many more elements. It's you know.
Sure.
That's why it's like, if you just tell me like a guy that's super rich and I don't have to, sure, I would love that. I think who wouldn't want to not have to work?
I would actually always want to work.
Really?
Life without work, there's no challenge, it's boring. I personally think people who are like stay-at-home moms,
we'll give you 10 years in the workforce.
they're really strong. I could not do that.
Wait, you go ahead, finish your point. Go ahead.
I was saying that I would always want to work because I feel like I would just feel empty that I'm not pursuing something that I love.
Do you want kids?
I am still kind of debating on that.
Well, let's leave that for a second. How old did you say you were?
22.
Give it a decade, and then we'll see if you want to work or not. Give it a decade.
Some people enjoy
Give it
working.
a decade when you're working and you're grinding for 10 hours plus a day at your job, and then we'll see if you want to keep working.
Do you think there's guys who genuinely enjoy working? Like men?
Yes.
Do you think men
Yes.
Why don't
I think that most men are hardwired for it, and they absolutely enjoy it.
So
but they don't have to come into the conflict that women do, the biological conflict of wanting to have a family and childbearing and nesting. Men don't have this same conflict. Women do. And the other thing is that even though I know men absolutely love to work, right? I think that they absolutely would love to work on their passion projects even more than working at a job for a boss. So if you were to say, okay, man, you're liberated with $5 million to pursue X, I think that they would choose that very quickly.
Okay, but personally, I think like even if I would want to have a child, you can childbear and then you go back to work if you really truly enjoy it. Some women, you think there's not a single woman in this world who really doesn't enjoy working?
No, I would never say that there's not a single. I would never group anything in a monolith. Okay. I would say that that most women, the vast majority of women, if given the choice not to work or to work, would choose not to work.
Perhaps the majority.
And I don't think that that's true of men. I think that men would still choose to work, maybe not jobby jobs, but they would still choose to work. But I don't think most women would choose to work. And this bears out when you ask them if they would prefer to work or not work if they did not have to. Most of them say that they would prefer not to.
So do you think, because I always struggle to understand that, because for me, I am, like you say, men are hardwired to want to work. I think that is true for a majority, but for me, as someone who I could not see myself just not doing anything, I constantly have to be on the go and go.
Well, I think we're speaking past each other, so maybe we can clarify some things. It wouldn't be that you aren't doing anything, but let me ask you a question. Let's take a girl who works at Subway, and she says, I want to work, right?
Okay.
What the hell is the difference between her making a Subway sandwich for a customer and making a sandwich for her husband? I have never really understood that, you know what I mean? They're both work. It's just like, why do you want to go work for strangers instead of working for your family? I've never really understood that. Well, it just seems illogical and nonsensical to me.
I do understand that example. I think it just depends on occupation. Like for me, as someone who I wanted to be a lawyer, that's completely different. If you're, you know what I mean? If I would to be a submissive woman, my lawyer skills or my debating skills or problem solving would not be helpful at all when, if I'm trying to be a submissive woman.
Yeah, they would be extremely helpful. So you know why we need really smart women raising children? Is because I don't want really dumb women raising children. So all those women who have the capacity to be really, really good lawyers and doctors and things like this, who have those really high IQs, I'd rather see them at home teaching their children. That's where I'd rather see them for the next generation to turn out all of those great I want those women having babies. And I want them nurturing those babies and making the next high IQ generation, right? I don't want them wasted away in a cubicle. That seems silly to me.
But that's not a wasting away in their cubicle for them, if that's what they truly love to do. I do understand. I mean, if you're someone who wants to have kids, if you're a woman who wants to work a high occupation job and have kids, then for sure you got to make some sacrifices at some point of the child's life when you're working that position. But again, it is possible, and I don't think you should put away your passion to raise a kid because that would. If
you want to work, if that's what you feel like you're compelled to do, and you don't actually want to do anything but that, fine. Nobody's saying that you can't do that, right? You can, and you have every right to. Mm-hmm. But for the vast majority of women, the conflict does not come between I want to work or do not want to work. It comes between I have to work, but I'd rather have a family. That's the real conflict which comes up because we value education over family. That's what we do. That's why women get married in their 30s now, because they want to have this social safety net, right? The safety net of something to fall back on. So the big conflict really doesn't come into play between women who just demand to be at work because they want to be there all day, but rather that they have to work because people have to work in modernity in order to make ends meet, right? But let me ask you this, now that I've kind of given you my view on this, do you think that if you went down the street and asked women, would you prefer to spend the rest of your life working, or would you prefer early on to be able to settle down with a man who could provide for you that you loved? Which answer do you think they'd give?
I mean, most likely they would want to have a family and settle down. But
right.
But all I'm saying is that
that's my whole point, right? And so, like, I would prefer a society where we made that easier for them to do that, rather than a society which valued sending our best and brightest women not to carry the future generation of children, which only they could do, but rather to slave the workforce underneath a boss. That just seems insane to me.
Right, so everything is about the choice. I just think that there shouldn't be that much societal pressure to have kids if you don't want to. You know what I mean?
Why? Why should there be so much societal pressure instead to value going to college, for instance, where useless degrees are handed out like they're candy? In fact, it's so bad, the standards have gotten so low that anybody can do it. College can't be about rewarding the best and the brightest, or everybody couldn't get through college, but they can. And so the standards have necessarily lowered in order to appeal to the lowest common denominator. A high school diploma is the equivalency of a high school education just 70 years ago. Right. So it's like, why shouldn't there be a national propaganda around a nuclear family and having children, instead of national propaganda and wasting your youth and your childbearing years going and getting a worthless degree that almost nobody ever uses? I'd like to know the answer to that question.
Because if you know that your true passion is being in this whatever occupation job that is, and then you have a society pressuring you to have a kid, and you feel like, oh, I have to do this, I have to sacrifice this, you're always going to regret not pursuing what you want to do, and that kid is going to know that you didn't do what you wanted to do. And that's
so what? So what? Well, I mean, what do you think sacrifice is about, patriotism? Do you think that men who get drafted and have to go to war, right? That they don't look back and go, oh, I could have done X and I could have done Y and I could have done Z. There is such a thing as patriotism. There is such a thing in a nation as a sacrifice for the nation. Why is this idea that everybody must endlessly pursue endless hedonism the best way, instead of people pursuing what the greater good for the actual nation is? That seems way wiser to me. If you're gonna propagandize an entire country, why not propagandize them towards procreation and having nuclear families and things which are really good for the health of the nation? Why not do that?
So you're reading that as a grand scheme of things instead of in a particular family, because sometimes there are women and men who have kids and don't pursue something they wanted to do, and that affects the family, and that causes a generational trauma. Because
every human being on planet Earth has some pursuance that they weren't able to do. The whole world is filled with failed rock stars and failed artists and failed, professionals of all kinds who chased a dream that they were not able to achieve. I mean, most people have some regret of something they weren't able to do. And this kind of idea of that, because people have kind of unachievable goals, that we shouldn't kind of move society towards these achievable things, which most people can do, which have proven time and time again to increase the happiness levels of almost everybody around. That still seems way better to me.
Okay, so you think for the greater good, it is important to pursue something that you don't want, even if that's going to make you and your family miserable, possibly?
Well, So this is loaded. Recognize how you said this, right? If it necessarily was going to make people's families miserable, how could it be for the greater good? That makes no sense. So if it was for the greater good, the most amount of people would find it useful, and the most amount of people would find this to be something which they would want to pursue, or it couldn't be for the greater good, right? It couldn't be.
I'm speaking of
how could it? You know what I mean?
I mean, you were speaking about greater good, and the way I understood, you were speaking about a nation and perhaps even a world, how it would work better in a world. But then there are going to be those really unhappy families who just did this because that was the societal pressure. I mean, that's always going to be the case. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but we're not going to. You would never in a million years, for instance, you would never say that there are going to be some people on planet Earth who perform better when they're doing drugs. There are. There's going to be some people who do. You would never say everybody should be able to do drugs because some people who do drugs perform better than others and have regrets they never did drugs. Does that even make sense? Would you ever say that in a million years?
Of course not. I don't think.
Of course not.
But I don't think drugs would affect anyone positively, to be honest with you.
No, wait a second. Caffeine doesn't affect people. Hang on. Wait. Hang on. Caffeine and sugar doesn't affect people positively?
Oh, that's what I was about to say, unless you're talking about those things and like...
You mean drugs?
Like, do you mean something that was prescripted, or just you're gonna go...
Even prescriptive as well. There's all sorts of, like, for instance, you think narcotics, like painkillers, which are highly addictive, aren't highly useful to society? Of course they are. And so, like, this idea that, wait a second, because some people would have preferred to have been on those drugs, that we can't regulate or propagandize against them, that's insanity. It's the same thing at the national level. This idea of endless hedonism and individualism with absolutely no thought to the greater society at whole is pure female solipsism. Men seem to understand this very well, and the men I talk to go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We probably should move towards those things. But when you look at voting patterns, that's what those things move to. Patriotism, nuclear family, anti-degeneracy, that's what men vote for. Women vote purely around solipsism and let me do what I want, which is just crazy to me.
If everyone understands that this is the optimal option, why do you think, especially in this day and age, there's so many people who disagree with that?
Okay, I'm going to give you the answer, and you're not going to like it. For one reason only, because of women's suffrage. Women's suffrage absolutely destroyed the United States of America, and women's voting patterns prove it. And the truth of the matter is that women vote mostly against risk-taking. And because they vote mostly against risk-taking, they impede on people's freedoms. And so individual people, men especially, who had the opportunity to vote out illegal immigration, keep the country exactly how they wanted it to be, that was all completely destroyed by female suffrage. If only men had been able to vote in the United States of America, right now, the United States of America would be beyond the glorious shining example on the hill. It would be beyond that. And the voting patterns prove it. Every single time it's a vote for security over the freedom to actually pursue these higher values, women vote against it almost every single time.
Okay.
And that's what I think. I think that that's the primary problem. The primary problem is that the two sexes do not see eye to eye on what is valuable. Mm-hmm. And this is why I think that one's going to have to inevitably choose, and it'll always move back that way. That all of this, what you see before you right now with egalitarianism, this will all reset eventually, and it'll just go back to primitivism. Men will be in charge anyway.
Andrew, you're going to get canceled if you're talking like that, Andrew. You got to be careful. You're going to get canceled, my friend.
I don't think so. I've never actually, you know who knows this better than anybody? Feminist theorists know this better than anybody else. Feminists are the ones who came up with force doctrine. I just borrowed it from them. They were the ones who understood that men at any time collectively could take charge, and there was very little women could do. Feminists theorized all of this. They knew all of this years and years before I was ever born, hundreds of years before I was born, in fact. Almost 200 years before, in fact. It's their own writings that I go off of. They insisted, the feminists insisted that women had the right to vote. But when it came to women voting for the right to vote, they wouldn't let them do it because every time women had the opportunity to vote on their own voting rights, they voted against it. Every single time.
I do have to move things on. We've been on this for a bit, but we do have the video and then a couple reactions. Austin? Yep. We'll do the video first. The video I sent you private chat.
Oh, okay.
It's just the one we reacted to, I think, last week. Wait, stop. Can you show us, please?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Got away with everything under the last boss, and it wasn't good for me at all. So I want guidance. I want leadership. But don't just like boss me around, you know? Like lead me. Lead me when I'm in the mood to be led.
Does that resonate with any of you? So you want, I mean, he's talking in the workplace, but like this is what I see when women say they want a masculine man, dominant man, a man who's a leader, who has leadership characteristics, who takes initiative. You want all these traits, but you want to pick and choose. You want the man to be able to turn that shit on with a light switch. You only want him to be a leader in some contexts. In other contexts, you want him to be a good, submissive boy, pat him on the head. Good boy. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything is black or white generally. You know, things very nuanced. Well, it's true. Like I mean, if you want to talk about things like that, relationships, like it just isn't. It isn't. It's like
no, but it's not.
It's two
not
humans.
black or...
They're very complex. No, it doesn't have to be just one way or just the other way. Like you have two people. It's very complex. And first of all, I think that like you have masculinity and like femininity, let's say, and everyone's kind of like there on the spectrum, kind of, right? So everyone's gonna find someone that's like complementary to them.
No, but so, like if you ask most women, like they want a guy to take the lead, to take charge.
Yeah.
In the dating context,
yeah,
you want the guy to make pretty much all the moves.
Like I do agree that women are contradictory. I agree with that. I know what you mean.
And you want
I
a
agree
man.
with that.
Oh, like you see these memes, like I want a guy who's going to say, be ready at 7 p.m. I'm going to pick you up. We're going here. Y'all want that. But then you also kind of don't want, like they're totally mixed signals. And then also you say you want a leader, but like you don't want to follow is the big thing. In order for somebody to be able to lead, if you want a man who's a leader, you got to be a follower. There is no, we can't both be the leader.
You don't think you can sometimes be, sometimes not be? You don't think you can kind of like move around?
You can, but if you want the man to be a leader, I don't really think you can.
If that's what you want, and
if that's what you like, there can be some dynamics like that.
Yeah.
But if you want, broadly speaking, and I think women broadly speaking want men to be leaders.
Yeah, what you're saying is like they're contradictory with themselves.
But
like
and
I get it. Yeah.
On a sort of biological, evolutionary level, you're attracted to men who are leaders, who are confident, who take initiative, who are masculine, who are dominant, who have those leadership traits. But feminism has put it into your mind not to be a follower. So you won't be submissive. You won't follow his lead. But you want him to be a leader. You want him to take the initiative. You want him to lead, but you won't follow. Be the leader, but I won't follow you. Doesn't make sense. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you want a leader, somebody's got to be the follower. And I can't lead with somebody who won't follow.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you must not have an opinion. Because sometimes it doesn't mean that you must not have an opinion. Like you're still in a relationship, right? Like I understand your synergy of like followers and a leader. But in any leader follower, you still have you're still gonna have discussions. You're still gonna just earlier you said well, that's just weird. That's just not being humans.
If I'm the CEO, if I'm the CEO of a corporation, and I give a task to an employee, it's not the employee should not be like.
So that's how you want your woman to be, your CEO, and you just.
No, I'm using an analogy to better articulate a point.
Yeah.
So not an employee, but
yeah, you're using the analogy because
if she wants me to pay for the first date and do all this shit and be a leader, and she never approaches guys, she wants to be approached, she wants me to take the lead in every realm, she wants me to plan dates, everything, then
she must not have an opinion.
Then you should probably listen to what I say.
But if you can't listen to
ladies, if you want to start sliding into my DMs and hitting me up and paying for first dates and doing all this shit and moving things forward physically and sexually, then we can have a conversation about who should listen and who should be a follower, who should be a leader.
I don't see how that equates to like not having an opinion, not like
you can have an opinion.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like even earlier you said like someone that doesn't quarrel. It's like that's not a relationship. You're gonna have quarrels. I'm not saying you always. There's always gonna be discussions. You're always gonna have you're two humans. Yeah.
No, there should be no quarreling.
Well, whatever you want to call it, but like you're never gonna. To want someone who's always gonna agree with you. First of all, I would want to be challenged. Personally, I would want my ideas to be challenged. I would want my boyfriend to want to be challenged so that we can like find, because for me, okay, what I know
We're
is like.
We're different though. Men and women are different.
They are.
Yeah. So.
But you guys, no, but you are, but I mean, if you talk about men, let's say like you talk.
Wait, I got to respond to the.
Okay.
You want to be challenged in a relationship. Most men, we contend with the world in our lives, right? The home has to be our peace, right?
Yeah.
If the home is not our recluse, if the home is not our peace, and you're quarreling and nagging and just constant conflict because you're challenging us, that's not a good girlfriend. That's not a good wife.
Well, that's the thing. That's not a good boyfriend either. And I get that because my ex was kind of like that. But I'm saying like you're gonna bump heads sometimes. You're not gonna always. Maybe. Like I'm just saying it's gonna happen. But there's a difference between that and like, always like creating problems, always creating conflicts. I get that, but that's for everybody. Nobody wants to be in a relation. Like you don't want a guy like that. You don't want a girl like that either.
Okay.
That's just a given. But you like to just want someone to constantly agree with you. It's like when you want you don't want to know if you're wrong about something, or maybe you have to think something through a bit like further, or like maybe there are other options, or maybe
I will listen.
Perhaps if you don't mind, I would like to just ask you two very simple questions. The first is, you yourself personally, would you prefer to have a man who treated you more like an equal, or who treated you more like he was in the dominant role and you were to be a submissive follower? Which would you personally prefer? There's no wrong answer.
Yeah, I'm not even 100% sure because I haven't had a lot of relationships and I've had bad ones. So and I'm being honest, it's not that I don't want to answer. I'm just not sure what the synergy I would want to be in.
Okay.
So maybe
let me ask you the second question, as I understand your answer to the first that you're not sure. Do you think that most men would prefer their women to be in a submissive position or a dominant one?
No, submissive. But again, I think what I'm arguing...
Yeah, right. Hang on. I agree. That I think most men would prefer their women in a submissive role. And you agree with me that most men would prefer their woman in a submissive role.
I think so, yeah.
If that is true, then if you look for an equal role where you say, okay, wait a second, we're equals, it's not submission, don't you necessarily narrow the field of men for yourself, like by an incredible amount, right?
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Yeah. So when Brian says this, it always sounds bad rolling off the tongue, because we're so indoctrinated into egalitarianism. We're all interchangeable widgets and everybody's equal to everybody else. Clearly, though, you have a bit of life experience. You know that that's not true. So the question then becomes, can't you value a person's opinion, but at the same time dismiss it? Can't you say, I value what you're saying, but you're wrong, and I'm going to do this anyway, because that's what's for the greater good of our family? Can't you value an opinion and dismiss an opinion?
If like a message comes in
There was something about
covering them up,
C-word.
you can go to the split. No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead. Wait, what? Did something?
No, he exited out.
Oh.
I don't know why he's there.
Oops.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
We can't see you.
Okay.
Something
Sorry, I was.
Something happened? Or?
Yeah, I don't know. I just lost all audio.
Oh, weird.
So I was just, the end of my question is, can't you, at the same time you value opinion, you value an opinion, dismiss it?
Yeah. I don't see the logic in dismissing an opinion that I value. If I value your opinion, I'm going to think about it.
I understand. I value the opinion of my children, but I dismiss the opinions of them all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't understand.
But as grown-ups,
how is that illogical?
Well, that's a completely different scenario. You're talking about
Why?
kids because kids are kids and because adults are adults.
Wait, hang on. My question to you was, can you value an opinion?
Oh, okay.
And dismiss the opinion that you value? You said, no, that's illogical, but I just showed you how that's not illogical.
Okay, yeah. But how do you, the way you value your kids' opinion is like, that kids are, kids. And it's different than the valuing of like your wife's opinion, right? We can agree with that.
Yeah, but hang on, let's back up.
But your concept, yes.
I'm not saying that a woman is a kid. I was just giving you a comparison, a very quick comparison to show you how you could value an opinion while at the same time dismissing it.
Yes.
You say, okay, this is valuable, but I outright dismiss it. Even though I care about your opinion, it doesn't mean your opinion is going to be correct, right? I don't see why that couldn't be applied in intersexual dynamics between men and women. Of course it can be.
I guess, yeah.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying is. Yeah. So if we're looking at this objectively, when Brian says to you, well, wait, I want a woman who's submissive. You say most men want a woman who's submissive. You say, but I want an opinion. Brian says, well, you should have an opinion, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to dismiss it. I don't see what you're actually disagreeing with.
But I mean, also, I think it's the definition of value too, like in the sense of like when I talk about the valuing the opinion of like grown-up adults, it's like it's you value it because it's something that you can actually like think about and like and again it depends on situations, but like kids generally, like young kids, it's like you don't value it in something that can be, well, sometimes it could be tangible, but anyways, yes, your concept, I get your concept, and yes, you can dismiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can value an opinion.
I get your logic.
You completely value an opinion and dismiss the opinion at the same time that you value it. And so what I think happens, and this is just my opinion, but I think we have a lot of sloganeering where, especially under egalitarianism, we think a lot about the slogans of like, but my opinion matters. It's like, yeah, I think your opinion does matter, but that doesn't mean that it's going to matter in every situation or that it shouldn't be dismissed and dismissed often. Because here's the thing, you and I both know, you're 39, you're not particularly young, right? A lot of people have a lot of opinions that are fucking stupid, right? Like, isn't that true? They just have a lot of really dumb opinions.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I mean, and don't you dismiss those opinions all the time? It's just being stupid?
Yeah.